So if you're a Transformers fan, this past Friday during Hasbro's FanFest 2021, which was streamed live on YouTube and various other platforms, you got some exciting news that you were hoping you were going to be getting for the past 5 years. And all clues and hints as to this news being announced, basically was coming in different ways. But most notably, one of the ways it was coming was with the release of the 86 line under the Studio Series division for Hasbro's Transformer figures. And that 86 line basically consisted of figures based around the 86 Transformers animated movie. And I know this because I happen to own 5 of them. This being one of them. The other ones that I have, of course, are Grimlock. And then under here, I have Jazz, Cup, and Blur. I have yet to get Scourge. But yeah, I have most of the first... I have 5, I should say, of the first 6 figures released under the 86 line for the Studio Series division for the Transformer figures at Hasbro. But these releases pretty much should have clued us in on something that was going to be announced real soon. And no sooner than FanFest arrive on Friday that, the news was finally revealed. That our questions as to what else involving the 86 movie could be revealed, our questions were answered. And our questions were answered in a big way, because the way they started FanFest was basically announcing that this summer, they didn't give a release date, but they said this summer we are going to be seeing the official 4K Ultra HD, 4K UHD release for the first time ever of Transformers the movie, the 1986 film. But they didn't just announce just a regular 4K Ultra HD release. No, they also announced a Steelbook release as well. Now, I know what you're probably asking. Why would they do a Steelbook since they already did that with the 30th anniversary edition? Well, in this case, the big difference is this is going to be a Steelbook that contains the 4K release and not just the Blu-ray. Now, I'll admit it kind of threw me off as well, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that they wouldn't be announcing a Steelbook release and hyping it up as much if it wasn't going to be a Steelbook that also contained, I should say, the 4K release along with the actual Blu-ray release and the DVD and possible digital code. But yeah, we are getting a 4K release for the first time of the movie. And it's kind of ironic because I talked about this during one of my Topics on My Mind live streams. And I was wondering, would it happen? Will they release it, especially with the 35th anniversary coming up? And lo and behold, they're doing just that. Now, the only negative some people have about it is the cover. And the fact that the prominent Transformer or Autobot shown on the cover is Hot Rod opening the Matrix as Rodimus Prime. Now, I can understand that people would rather have something like, let's say, what we got here with the original Steelbook or original release of during the 30th anniversary Blu-ray release of the movie. I can understand that people would rather have something like that, or basically have the cover of the movie, basically have the movie poster that was used to promote the movie when it first came out as a cover, or even something like this. But, what are you going to do? It's their decision. And apparently the cover is done. The cover is done by a well-known Transformers comic book artist on top of that. So, you get what you can. You get what you can. And I don't have a real problem with it whatsoever. And some people have even pointed out that, hey, there's software out there to where you could print out your own cover that you could put in front of it so you don't have to look at that one. So, there's that option if you guys want to have that. But yeah, we are getting like I said, a 4K re-release of the movie. It's for the first time on 4K. The only question is, are we going to get the same features that we did last time? The same special features like interviews and all that? Possibly, but they might throw in a few new things here and there just to freshen it up a little bit. Because that's what they did with the 30th anniversary release on Blu-ray. Yeah, they had the original commentary from the Sony release back in 2007, from 2006, 2007. But they also, on top of that, I should say, had new interviews with, the cast and the crew behind the movie. They didn't just, recycle the original interviews from the 2006 release that Sony did. They actually incorporated some new interviews to go along with some of the commentary and stuff that they had brought over. But the question is, what other features could we get? Who's to say? I mean, I know, again, we might get those interviews once more, recycled for the 4K release. We might even get, the trailer and all that recycled and everything, because that's a traditional thing with any home video release or re-release. But I'm hoping maybe what we'll get is perhaps some vintage commercials, maybe, for the toys that were promoted for the movie. I'm hoping maybe they'll put in Stan Bush's The Touch, which would be great. Put the original music video in there. That would be nice. So we'll see what they do. But, I for one that grew up on the Transformers since 1984, I'm happy about this. Because this basically is like the final step. This is the final step. This is the final format for any movie nowadays to get released. Because once you get this treatment, you've pretty much done it all. I mean, Transformers has done VHS. They've done Laserdisc. They've done, obviously, VCD. They've done, let's see, I think they did PSP at one point. UMD. They've done DVD, of course, Blu-ray, digital, digital download, which was what the 2016-2017 release. They did actually, instead of doing digital, because they would get, a lot of movies were doing that at the time, they instead went with the old school digital download deal, where you downloaded an MP4, I should say, of the movie to watch on your device whenever you wanted, or on your computer whenever you wanted. But later on, they finally they finally caught up and realized, oh, it's a lot easier just to do the digital part through places like Movies Anywhere, Amazon Prime, Vudu, you name it. That's VUDU, by the way, too. So they pretty much figured going those routes were a lot easier, including like, Google and Apple TV and stuff, iTunes. So they pretty much figured later on that, oh yeah, that's a lot easier than, people using this, because I think they were realizing the code wasn't working that well for a lot of people with the original release. The original 30th anniversary release, that is. But yeah, it's done it all. It's gone through every kind of format you could think of. And now 4K being like possibly the last physical format, to be very prominent, be very popular before maybe a possibility of going the all digital route down the line, to finally achieve this, for any movie, is basically saying that you've created an atmosphere, you've created a culture, a following that shows that, despite how others might feel about you, that looking back at it many years later, maybe several decades later, shows that the movie has had quite the impact. And that's exactly what Transformers the movie has done. It has shown that it has, it has garnered that kind of an impact. And, I cannot wait for this movie to be released on 4K during the summer. Now, like I said, they didn't give a specific release date. They didn't say whether it was June, July, or August. They just said during the summer. Excuse me. But I would assume that it's going to be between the end of June and the beginning of August, between that time frame, that timeline, because the beginning of August, early August, is when the movie originally came out in 1986. So I would assume between the end of June and the beginning of August, we're going to get the movie released. The movie will be released physically on 4K, regular 4K release, and Steelbook 4K release. So expect something between between this past Friday's Fan Fest and possibly next month and into June for us to get an announcement of a release date for the film. But like I said, I think the timing for the release will be between the end of June and into early August, because that's the time frame as to when the movie originally came out or was getting ready to be released in theaters back in 1986. As a matter of fact, if I look here on my calendar, I would assume that if we're going to get it in August, it'll be either on August 3rd or August 10th. And if we get it in June, at the end of June, it would be June 29th. And July, I could see between July 6th and July 27th, which would be 2 days after my birthday. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's going to be released. Again, they haven't given a specific release date yet. They may have updated that, but yeah, I can't wait for this. And it's going to be, it's honestly, right now, I'll tell you this. If you watch the HDX digital, the digital version of the movie, or even the physical Blu-ray disc version of the movie, I'll say this. If you watch it, if you play that movie, you know, digital-wise or physical-wise, on a 4K television or courtesy of a 4K Blu-ray player, it looks great. It looks tremendous. I mean, it feels like basically you are watching it in 4K, and you are. You are watching it in 4K because, you know, I could, you know, if I'm watching, let's say, the physical Blu-ray release, courtesy of my 4K Blu-ray player on my 4K television, and I press the display button here, if you will, it shows up and it says 4K 30 frames per second, or 4K 30p, or 4K 60p. So it basically takes the signal and converts it to 4K. So you can only imagine what it's going to look like when it hits 4K, you know, officially, you know, this summer, and gets played in a lot of people's 4K Blu-ray players on the 4K televisions, or even if they're lucky to have them, the 8K Blu-ray players. And anybody that has those big televisions, like Angry Joe has one of those big Vizio ones he puts on his wall. Can you imagine what it'll look like in 4K on one of those? Whew! I can only imagine. I can only imagine. I can only imagine. But along with that, you know, it wasn't the only news related to Transformers that got announced. As a matter of fact, other news got released as well. You know, I spoke of the 86 line, part of the Studio Series division, or Studio Series line, for the Transformer figures that Hasbro's been doing. And basically they have a few more figures coming out in time, or just in time, for the movie's release on 4K, if not afterwards. One of them, of course, is Slug of the Dinobots. But what's interesting is he's going to have Daniel Witwicky as a accompanying figure, as part of a minifigure, if you will. He's going to have Daniel Witwicky with him. Now you would think, well, why didn't they wait till RC was released, or Springer was released? And I think it's because they don't know how many more of these they're going to probably do. So it's best to get Daniel out now with one of the figures. And since Slug was like one of the figures next in line, you might as well put him with him. You know, since he is the only Autobot in the line in the upcoming new set of 86 figures that are going to be released. So it makes sense to go with that for right now. The other figure that's being released is Gnaw. That's Gnaw. Gnaw of the Shocticons. Basically a Shocticon toy is being released. And then, of course, we have Wreck-Gar. Yes, we have Wreck-Gar being released as well. All three of these are part of the 86 line, part of this, which is released under the Studio Series division or name for Hasbro and the Transformers. So those are going to be nice to have. That's basically 3 more added to the 6 that have been released. You know, I got 5 of the first 6. I still got to get Scourge. But yeah, that's basically 3 more added to the 6 release. That makes 9. I'm assuming we'll probably get a couple more to round it out, maybe. So hopefully we might get RC, we might get Springer, you know, who knows? We might get, you know, Blaster. I think that's being rumored. So we'll see what they do. But yeah, this is big news if you're a fan of Transformers the movie. You know, overall, not only are we getting new additions to the Studio Series 86 line, but we're also getting the movie itself released for the first time on 4K Ultra HD, 4K UHD, both in regular 4K release and steelbook release as well. And again, can't wait for this. Like I said, whatever features they add on or they tacked on, along with the ones they may recycle, is anybody's guess. Like I said, maybe we'll get the Touch music video. Maybe we'll get some commercials that center around the toys that were promoted, for the movie. And hey, maybe we'll get that one episode that we only got. And this is the truth, guys. You got to get, this is the truth. This is the truth. And this is why you have to, keep, a lot of the releases of movies, special edition anniversary releases of movies around, because sometimes they're going to include something you wouldn't expect. And this is one reason I have the 20th anniversary edition of the movie, with the lithograph, that is. It has on disc 2, I believe, the Japanese only exclusive episode, Scramble City. Yeah, it has Scramble City on there, which I think you can find on YouTube. I'm not really sure, but Scramble City is on the second disc of the 20th anniversary release. So, so that right there is a lesson in always keeping any kind of special edition or anniversary edition you may get of your favorite film, or one of your favorite films. And perhaps maybe Scramble City might be an extra that we might get, because that kind of does bridge the gap between the end of the second season and into the movie. So it's going to be, so that'll be really interesting. So that would be really something, I should say, to see get released. And maybe we'll get the commentary, that along with it that was in the original release of it on the 20th anniversary edition, or maybe we'll get some new commentary to go along with it to kind of explain why, Scramble City, is kind of a big deal, and kind of like a bridge, if you will, between the movie itself, the third season, and the end of the second season. So we'll have to see. But yeah, that's about it, guys. That's about all the news I could tell you about with Transformers. Cannot wait for the summer to see it officially on 4K Ultra HD. I think it's going to look better than it ever has. Because they do, believe it or not, despite, if you have a 4K Ultra player or Ultra HD player and, a 4K television, despite the fact that when you watch something on there that the picture does, increase, that the additional pixels get added and all that, despite the fact that, it becomes a lot more crisper, like you're watching 4K, if you will, to me, having an actual 4K release, I should say, having an actual 4K release, I think is going to really help in the long run. It's going to really help make the movie itself, I should say, look a lot better. But let me know what your thoughts are. Comment down below. How do you feel about Transformers the movie 1986 being released for the first time on 4K Ultra HD? Comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts are on the live chat during the premiere. And I will talk to y'all later. God bless. Take care.